In this lesson, we're going to look at cell specialization and kind of how that works. First of all, in the image that you are seeing here, you've got 6 different kinds of cells. Here's a sperm cell, nerve cell, white blood cell, bone cell, red blood cells, and muscle cells. And what you should notice about all of these cells is that they have structures that help them to accomplish their functions, right? A sperm cell has this nice long flagellum for swimming, right? It's got a downscaled head, so the head is really small and lightweight so that it can swim distances. Nerve cells have all these projections from them so they can make connections to other cells. And then they've got this long projection that can connect to other nerve cells to transmit the impulse. White blood cells are big and capable of grabbing on to other organisms and consuming them so that they protect your body from things like bacteria, and so on and so on. So every cell has different structures that fit their function. These cells are what we all call specialized or differentiated. It means that these cells have gone through a process where they have been assigned a job, assigned a function, and they're just for the rest of their lives going to carry out that one function. Multicellular organisms tend to specialize, and the reason for this is that you don't need every cell in your body to carry out all of the functions. You don't need cells in your foot to digest food for you. You don't need cells in your eyeball to do reproduction. What you want is to divide the labor between different cells in different parts of the body so that each region carries out a specific function, and that function relates to the whole body's needs as a living thing, as an organism. But then that's a much more efficient system. And so that's why multicellular organisms tend to divide their labor and act more efficiently. So that's what specialization is, and these are specialized or differentiated cells. Now, there is some degree of specialization that occurs in unicellular organisms as well. So don't think that specialization is only reserved for multicellularity. There are some organelles specifically that are specialized. One example is the contractile vacuole. And in class you saw one of these in action. It's an organelle that kind of looks like this. It's got these little collecting tubules that collect water, and then they can dump water from each of these little collecting tubules into the central vacuole, and the central vacuole will squeeze shut and pump that water out. So this is a water pumping organelle that allows single-celled organisms that live in fresh water and constantly have to deal with water rushing in to be pumped out. Another specialized organelle would be the eye spot. This, again, in some single-celled organisms that rely on photosynthesis to get their food, the algae, they have a light-sensing organelle. It's not a true eye, but it is an organelle that can sense where the light is, and this allows for a process called phototaxis. Photo, if you break this word down, means light. Taxis is response to a stimulus. So here the stimulus is light, and it's how the organ or the cell can respond to light. Some cells will do something called chemotaxis, where they can respond to chemicals in their environment as well. But there are some specialized organelles, obviously, in the single-celled organisms as well. Now, this begs the question, all of this specialization business, where do these specialized cells come from? And the answer is stem cells. And you can see down here, I've included a picture of what stem cells look like. Notice that stem cells are very nondescript kinds of cells. They just look like little bubbles, right? They don't have any specific specialized organelles. They don't have any specific specialized structures, projections, cilia, flagella, anything, right? These are cells that have not yet got a job or a function yet. When an egg is fertilized, it starts to reproduce, the cells in that egg start to reproduce, and they create these stem cells. So normally stem cells are found in embryos, right, because that's where you would have a bunch of cells that haven't yet been assigned a job. Some of your adult tissues also have some stem cells found in them. So stem cells come at fertilization. After fertilization, once the egg cell that's fertilized starts to reproduce and make new cells, it creates these stem cells. You may have heard of stem cells in the news recently. There's a lot of use for stem cells in biotechnology research. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy around that because a lot of stem cell lines are found in embryos. The thing about stem cells is they can generally become any other kind of cell, at least embryonic stem cells can. Adult tissue stem cells really are limited, so they're not as great for research because they typically can only become one or two other types of cells, but there are some applications there as well. All right, so how do we get from stem cells to creating specialized cells? And the process is called differentiation or cell specialization. And it works by regulating the DNA. So what cells tend to do, and you've got kind of a picture here down at the bottom, the sperm meets the egg, right? And you create this fertilized cell, and like I said, the egg then starts to divide, and it creates a bunch of stem cells. What happens is these cells tend to clump together in little regions, and all of a sudden one of them decides, hey, I'm going to be a muscle cell. And all the cells around it are clumped together, and they start chemical signaling each other, hey, let's all be muscle cells. Let's all be muscle cells. And so they start to do this DNA regulation process. So they take their chromosomes, like this. Here's a chromosome, right? And remember, all cells in your body have all of the chromosomes. So all 46 of your chromosomes are present in every single cell of your body. However, your muscle cells have turned off any chromosome or any part of a chromosome that's not related to muscle cell function. So if it's a muscle cell, it'll wrap chromosomes that aren't related to muscle cell function, or even pieces of chromosomes that aren't related to muscle cell function, in protein. And it leaves open just little tiny regions of chromosomes that contain the genes for muscle cell function. And that's how differentiation occurs. Okay, so here we've got just a segment of this chromosome that's open. The rest of this chromosome now is basically turned off. It's not accessible because it's all wrapped in protein. So cells do this DNA regulation to become specialized, and once they start to specialize, they chemical signal other neighboring cells to do the same thing, and that's why they start to clump together and start to form organs and things like that. Now, are the egg and sperm cells stem cells? No, they're not. They create, though, an embryo that will produce all of these stem cells. Okay, so the cells that are undifferentiated stem cells in this diagram are these cells right in here. All right, this is the original stem cell, really. This is the fertilized egg. The sperm and egg themselves are not stem cells, but they will fuse to form a fertilized egg that will reproduce and create all of the stem cells, but this is kind of the original stem cell of the organism. For our purposes, that's all you need to know for your test and for your EOC. That's what specialization is about. That's how cells specialize and what they look like when they become specialized.